So, in my previous video, I showed you how to create a tonal scale, okay, and how to hold your pencil, how to control the pressure, and how to layer the shading so that you get a light to dark scale. For the next part of this is to draw the butterfly. But in order to draw the butterfly well, we need to understand its structure. Too often people start looking at a picture that they want to draw and they start drawing all the details, and then they soon realise that actually the shape and the structure isn't right. So to begin with, you need to look at the structure, and we need to understand the overall sort of shape and the overall shapes that the butterfly, I call it a butterfly, it might even be a moth, the sort of overall shapes and the overall proportions. So what I tend to do is to sort of demonstrate to you, if I was to trace the overall shape of this butterfly, where the line of symmetry is, and if I did a really rough sort of shape around it, you could see that it's made up of sort of two triangles really. Okay, two equal triangles almost. And that's the sort of first thing to understand, and that's the first thing to see. And also to understand how big these wings are in relation to the box that it's sitting in relation to the space that it's sitting in. So apart from all the details, this is the first thing to see. And then if you see that, it's a lot easier to sort of transfer that to the bigger upscaled space here. So you are scaling up in proportion to the small image. So you can see how much space there is here and how much space proportionately, roughly, we need to leave. So it could be about here. We know that the bottom of the wings is going to be about here. Now, just like I said before, you're holding your pencil at the end, okay, or in the middle lightly. All the marks that we make need to be able to be rubbed away easily, and they need to disappear. If you press on too hard, too much pressure, and you rub that away, it won't disappear, and that will make you lose interest in your drawing. You'll lose motivation. So draw very, very lightly so that it rubs out. Okay, it's a skill in itself. It's a discipline in itself. Okay, so I know where the top of it is and I know where the bottom is. The next thing I know is I need to mark out is where the tips of those wings are going to be in relation to this overall space. I'm going to look at the angle of this line here. You see the angle of that line there, it's roughly like this, and I know that it's going to go around about here. And the angle of this one, if I slide that across, I know that the angle of this wing is going to be roughly like this. So very, very faint sketchy line is what's needed here, and then we can connect these up as well. And these are only rough guidelines to give us the proportions, the position and the scale. So then if you wanted to, you could do some very, very faint lines for his head or her head. I don't know what sex the butterfly is. Something like this. And then I can start looking at the shape itself, the actual shape. And I know that the actual shape starts here at the body and it curls round, and I'm watching this curve here. I'm watching how that curves. That's not a straight line like I've drawn on here. It's not a straight line, it's a curve. So it's got to curve up and in a little bit, following the angle of that line that I drew, like that. Similarly on the other side, only this one sort of curls up and then it goes more flat. You can see that. So it goes up, again very, very faint, up and then flat. Slightly different. So that's the first bit. Now what I would do is I would look at maybe the body. So I'm going to leave the wing alone for a minute. I'm going to look at the body. Where's the sort of end of its tail there? And how far is it from here to the tail? It's probably about that big there. In relation, that much scaled up a little bit. would mean here. And then again, the body is made up of segments. You've got one segment here, and again, if I was to sort of trace that, it would look like a sort of rectangle. It would look something like this. So that's what I'm going to try and draw here. Just very quickly, very loosely, where that body might go. Okay, so it's just a quick mark. I can add the details later on. The next thing we should notice is how the wing grows from the body. If we look really carefully, the wing does not attach itself to his tail, to this back end here. The wing actually grows from the top part, his thorax if you like. It starts from here and it echoes the shape of the body at the bottom, like this, and then it curls in and then out again to the bottom. Similarly on this side, it grows from the top of the body here, like so. Now at this point, if you wanted to pause the video and catch up and get to the point where I've got to here, that would be a really good idea. Pause the video, put some music on maybe if you wanted to, and try and get this far. Okay, you will, like I said before in drawing, you would have to rub things out, you will have to improve it, you will have to refine it, but that's not a problem, because that's the process of art. So pause the video and try and get to where I'm at now, and then when you've got that far you can play it again and you can pick up where I'm going to carry on. Okay, so hopefully you spent a good 5, 10, maybe 15 minutes trying to get this far, reviewing what I've said, and you've got a shape very similar to mine. So we've done the body very quickly, we've done the bottom half of his body quickly, we've done the inside shapes of the wing, understanding and seeing that the wing grows from the top half of the body, not his tail. Okay, so now I'm going to look at the actual shape here. There, it's not a straight line like I've drawn on my picture here. It's not a straight line. Okay, it actually sticks out a bit and then goes in and then out again. So there is a curve like this, and then that curls in and then out again. So it comes out, in and out again, out, in, out again. Then on the other side, goes out, in a little bit. It doesn't go in as much on the other side. It's more, it's not straight, but it has got a bit of a kink in there and a curve. So it curls and then goes in and then comes out again here. Okay. So the next thing for me is to see another part of the structure. Now I see the wings as made up of two segments, two main segments. So where this line here comes out from the body and comes down to here, you have one part of the wing which looks quite similar. And then you have another part of the wing, those inner bits, okay, which are slightly different. So that's the next part of the structure that I would draw in. So where along this line here do these parts meet? And it's about halfway, about there. And then it's halfway up the body, probably about here. And you imagine a straight line, or slightly curved line, like so. Similarly on the other side, how far along from here to there do you see that? And again, it's coming out of the body just across from the other one here. So a curved line which does that there. So if you haven't already, again, pause the video at this point here and draw in these bottom curves for the wings and the two segments for the inner part of the wings. Okay, So to add a bit more detail in the wings now, we've noticed that we've got 2 segments on each wing. Next thing to notice are the structural lines for the wing itself. Okay, the first one is just runs inside the top edge there, and it goes from about here like this, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 segments. Okay, and the first segment starts right at the top here, look, and it sweeps down to the edge. It starts up here, there, and it finishes about there. So very similar to the first line there. The next one would go straight in, coming out of the same point here, like so. The next one is a little bit further up, like so, and then there's one that goes into the top part of the wing here, like that. So again, you've got to look out for, and you look for this kind of structure when you're doing drawings like this, structure all the time. So now, well, it's slightly harder now, is to do the mirror image of the other side. So you've got the same structural segments, and those lines, imagine that they all meet at the top here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we've also, I missed out the top segment there that goes along the top. This is probably the thing that gives the wing its strength. There. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that meets there. So those are the structural lines on the wings. We're going to do similar structural lines for, okay, and we're just going to write that down. So we call them structural lines, and we are first analysing structure. Now structure means the way things are built. Okay, how are things made? So buildings have a structure. We as human beings have a structure. We have a skeleton, and to understand and draw human beings well, you would need to understand the skeletal structure and the proportions and the sizes to draw human beings well. So similarly with butterflies, they have a structure, as do we. So let's look at how many lines we've got in the sort of inner section here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 again. So we need to draw 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. But they're quite equal in size. If we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections, and they all sort of meet here. They go towards the top. Now notice it's taken me all this time just to analyse, just to draw the structure. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. Now if I wanted to rub all of this out, I bet I could probably make it all disappear, except maybe a couple of dark lines that I've done at the top. So if you want to pause the video while you catch up, pause the video at this point. Okay, I'm going to pay some attention to the body itself now here, because again the body is made up of parts and segments. So looking at its tail end that is not attached to the wing, we're going to make those shapes just a little bit darker now. Notice I'm holding my pencil a bit further down now so I can get slightly darker lines, but not very dark. I still may make mistakes, I probably will make mistakes, so I'd want to be able to rub anything out that may be wrong. And I'm looking at this body here now. There's like a segment within a segment. It's got 2 bits here, almost sort of flat. It's almost like a body armour that he has. So you've got to pay attention to these parts that make up the whole. Okay, so lines are slightly darker because I want them to stand out now. Now the eyes, initially I drew the eyes just a little bit too big, so I'm going to make them smaller because there are spaces in between the two eyes. It's got a pointed face. The lines from the wing go up into the head. There. And there. Now at this point I could look at the angles of the antennae as well and draw those. Like so. Again, looking at the angles, I may have drawn that just a little bit too steep, but I can get away with that. Again, very, very faint. I don't really know whether that's right. Looking at how much space is there, I could maybe tilt that one a bit more. So always be willing to make mistakes, and you learn from each mistake that you make. You're assessing it, reassessing it, and modifying and changing what you've done. And again, I haven't gone into details, I've not done any shading, and this is just about the structure. So if you want to pause the video there and just sort of catch up to my bit here, and then resume the video when you're ready. Okay, so moving on, I want to sort of identify the patterning and the shapes that are actually in the butterfly wings. So I can see that there's an area here which is made up of really nice shading. But again, if I sort of summarize and simplify the sort of shape that it is, it's like a bit like a diamond shape, a bit like a strawberry shape. It starts about here and it goes to roughly, again, very, very light structural lines that I'm drawing there, just to generalize it, summarize it, like so. Now once I've got that, I can then add in the smaller shapes. I see that there's a white patch here, so I could draw that white patch into those two segments there. It's not 100% accurate, but it's good enough. If I was trying to achieve 100% accuracy, you would get incredibly bored watching me do this. Don't forget, you can pause the video at any time and help yourself to catch up. You don't have to watch it all because you will forget what you've just seen. There you go, that's a straight line there. So this shape connects over here, and it goes to about here. Okay, very lightly again, don't press on too hard. I can't stress that enough. It's the one thing that puts people off from drawing because they are too heavy-handed, and then when they make a mistake they get annoyed because they can't rub it out, and then they lose motivation. Now, I've just realised I've done that a little bit too far down, it's too big. It needs to just come off this shape here a bit smaller. Way too big. Okay, so I was able to rub that out because it didn't press on too hard. And then I'm going to go here and here. I can add a little bit more detail here. I've done that too high up as well. See, even I make mistakes. Nothing to worry about. As long as you are willing to improve it and correct it, that's what matters. Doesn't always go right the first time. I don't expect it to. and neither should you. So I'm going to stop this video here, because essentially you're doing the same thing in this area here, in this area here, looking at how big the spaces are. And if the patterning isn't 100% correct, it doesn't really matter. You can get away with that. What matters is the structure. Providing you've got the structure correct, if your shading isn't great and the patterning isn't 100% the same as that, it doesn't really matter. So have a really good go at getting all of these lines marked out on both sides on here as well. The next video is all about the shading method here, okay, and how to achieve the contrast. Very similar to the way that we did that. Controlling pressure. I'm going to show you a different mark making technique here to achieve that sort of dark to light effect. So good luck, and I'll see you on the next video for the next part of the butterfly.